say no.
Not today.
Not today. So we agree. Not today. My panelists, good afternoon. We have one panelist in Chile. I don't know if she's already online. I guess we sorted that out. And if we have, maybe you can also read her bio as she reads us. We have Barbara online. Hi Barbara, can you hear us? Can you unmute yourself? Oh, she's unmuted. What else does she need to do? Barbara, we can't hear a thing. We can't hear you. We can see you.
Okay, while we fix the sound,
While we are fixing the sound,
on Zoom, we've got Barbara Alcaega. I hope I got it right. She's a seasoned communicator and diversity champion with 15 plus years experience in mining in Chile. Her experience includes spearheading highly technical international conferences, corporate communications, forging alliances and networking amongst key stakeholders from various corners of the industry. She has worked on gender inclusion for more than 7 years as a member of WIM Chile, collaborating with the REDEC, and more recently as head of operations for International Women in Mining. She's also president of the Gender and Diversity Committee of the Australian Chilean Chamber of Commerce. Barbara Alcaega.
can you say hi, Barbara, so that we hear your voice? Just so that we are sure we can hear her. Okay. While waiting for technology, I guess we shall nevertheless continue. Our panel has been introduced to all of us. I have also been introduced. And I keep saying to a lot of people, I worked in the mine for 7 years. And I had a boss who used to tell me that, Segametsi, you are not a woman in mining. We used to argue a lot about it. Because I kept saying to him, Ghana, I work in the mine. And he said, but you are not a woman in mining, Segametsi.
You are.
He was such an interesting boss. I think those of you who know him will remember him back then. He's such an interesting character. So he was based in Gaborone, I was based in Germany, and I kept telling him, but I go to the blue area, the red area, I wear a helmet, I wear this and that. She said, but you are still not a woman in mining. Women in mining are those who reside inside the blue area and the red area. Not those of you who stay outside.
They never have.
So I kept saying to him, okay, I'm in between them, because let's say it's a male-dominated environment, there are women in mining, I'm also a woman in tech. Yes. Because again, in tech, we see a lot of males. It's a very male-dominated environment, and there are very few females. And when you talk about entrepreneurship, it's even worse. There are very few female-owned companies in the ICT space. And I must say, it takes energy, it takes effort to try and compete with your male counterparts, and to try and prove yourself, and say, I can also do it. Before we go into the topic as well, just to lay it out, because our topic is about talent development, talent management, to accelerate the women in the workspace. I remember my very first few days at the mine. I was coming from corporate, had always been corporate, I've always worn my stilettos and all that. Now I go to the mine, and I'm not in the blue area, but I'm told the dress code and everything, I'm fine with it, I'm happy. I like adventure. I get excited about anything new. So I normally when I go into a place, I believe I'm going to excel, because I'm going to learn, starting point. Whatever happens there, I will learn, and I'll be good at it. So I got there, and I think my first week or so, I was sitting in somebody's office at our department, and there's a senior manager who passed by. And he said, ooh, when I was because the door was open a bit, and I was sitting down like this, the door was slightly open, he saw the shoe, and he was just passing by and saying to the owner of the office, because he could see the shoe. So definitely he was saying something about, you know?
Unconscious bias.
Conscious bias, right? Then the following week, I was was told we will be introducing you to EXCO. They have been in and out, but they are around. So we will do the visits to their offices. So you know when you are told you are going to be introduced to senior leadership, you dress up. So I dressed up for that week because I was going to be introduced to senior leadership. So in the green area, it was fine to dress up. And we walked up to this guy's office. The same person who talked about the shoe. And I was introduced and he said, I don't know if you realized, men and women run away from that office. Just looking at you, he sounded so arrogant, according to me. He became a friend later. I narrated how I felt. And I could see the type of person he was. He's very jolly, but he has a very arrogant character if you don't know him. So if you meet him for the first time, second time, and he says that it's easy for you never to go back to his office or never to even engage with him. But after a few engagements, I realized this is just him. But the minute somebody says men and women run away from this office, and then he looks at you and says, I don't think you will survive. You walk back and think, what is it about me that he saw? So you start judging yourself, you start becoming afraid, you start belittling yourself. Remember, this is my second week. I haven't even been to the blue area. So I know I have to wear this steel toes at one point and the helmet and go there. I was excited to go and go into the tracks. I had told them I want to view blasting and all those things. I want to go into the red area. I was told if you go out of the red area, you need to have properly dressed inside. Because when you go out, they take off all your clothes. That's the situation in the mine. So you can't walk in there with whatever underneath. So you need to be properly dressed up even inside, even though you are searched by women. But you need to be sure they are not going to make stories out of what they see. So this is me and the guys chatting, and I'm thinking, which place have I come to? But all the same, let me just say, I will see. And I must say, of all the managers in the history of Germany, in the IT department, who stayed the longest was me. Earlier on, we were talking about Dr. Chiepe, a woman of firsts. And in my short bio that I do, this year I started listing the firsts for me. And it keeps me going, it motivates me. And I keep saying, I'm the first IT manager, not just a woman for that matter, to have worked for 7 years in Germany. And I take pride in that. I was never chased out of the mine. I stood before men and giants, and at the time we had very, very rough leadership. Those who demanded performance, no matter what, no matter the situation. All that they wanted, all that they demanded was that results must be met. No matter your situation. I remember one incident when I was still very new. There was an issue with the network, we needed to fix, and the guys in Havaroni said, we need to bring down the network. So I went up the senior manager finance where I reported and told her, it was her at the time, that we need to bring down the network because we need to fix. She said, okay, you can alert others and then you can do it. And I thought, okay, alert whom? I was still new. So learning the environment, ladies, is also very key. And learning the decision makers, who makes the decision. So we brought down the network, and eventually after 30 minutes or so, I got a call from the senior security. She said, I said, yes, sir. She said, can you come back to the mine and help the people get out of the PCCs because they can't go out? I said, what? He said, yes. I said, but I'm security. So why can't security do it? She said, no, you made the decision to bring the network down and people can't come out. So go take them out. I said, no, but I cannot take them out. And the network is being fixed. He said, okay, so you are the general manager of this mine. You make decisions, you stop the mine. So I've stopped the mine before. But in all that, I also learned. Like I said, it's important to know your stakeholders and to know what connects to what. Sometimes you want to also stand out and do the best and be the best and do the best for the systems that we own and manage and all that. But we forget that it's a chain, the value system, the value chain from exploration all the way to when the diamond leaves the mine. It's a relationship. So when you talk about people, when you talk about talent, when you talk about women, when you talk about men, remember you are talking the system that operates within the mining environment. And when you talk about talent, you are talking about this system that can stop the mine from operating. Because without talent, how else do we operate? Without people, how else do we get the results? Without them being developed and managed. So it's important that we value ourselves first, and we also allow the organizations we live in to value us by ensuring that we give them feedback and adequate feedback. I'm here with my team. We looked at this topic, we tried to break it down, and we will take you through experiences. We will take you through what it means to be feminine and continue working in the mining environment. We will look at the academia side of it. We will look at culture and environment, how it affects your talent. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome Dr. Rugani. I'll pick her as the first one to take us through women in academia and related, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Everyone. Oh my God, this room is full of beautiful women. Like many speakers before me, I'm not a mining engineer. Thank you, Heidi, for highlighting my achievements. All of you ladies are decorated with wonderful accolades.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's always a foundation. And I'm an educator, I'm an advocate, and I'm a mentor. Meaning, one of my obligations is to make sure that girls, I'm not going to talk about women, but girls. Before we become women in engineering, we were girls studying science, maths, and all these other subjects. And that's how I'm feeding into this topic from the academic perspective. Why? Because which women would we be elevating if we did not recruit them, retain them at a lower level? We are aware of the low numbers in enrollment in tertiary, especially in the STEM fields. The T and the E, which is the technology and engineering, we have lots and lots of female doctors. We have, the numbers are increasing in maths as well, but it's the engineering. But we're here for the mining engineering. Just to give you a glance of the statistics for the institution that I work for, so that at least it can validate my argument here today. I joined in 2018, as highlighted in my bio. I was the only female teaching staff member with a PhD in the Faculty of Engineering and Technology. Until last year, around October, we were joined by another female from Kenya. And currently we stand at only 2 Botswana female teaching staff members with PhD, and one in my department, which is electrical, computer and telecommunications engineering, and another one is in mechanical engineering, none in mining as it stands, which is really sad. So I'm talking about a department, a faculty of 5 departments, including mining and geological engineering. No HOD is a female. There's no female who is at professor level. So that's alarming.
Yeah.
The ratio of, I would use the word girl just because that's the label. However, I'm referring to females and males. The ratio of girls to boys graduating each year in the engineering programs is about 1 to 6. That's really sad as well. Every time I walk into my classroom, I look around, especially at the beginning of an academic year, I look around and I ask the male students to look around, who's sitting next to you or behind you or in front of you. Is there anything that stands out? Usually they're not sure what I'm talking about, but it's to make them aware, or at least to recognize that it's more of them than their gender counterparts. So, like, hey, she spoke. I'm always given roles of nose-taking. It used to bug me, but not anymore. I think I wear that with a badge of honor. The only reason being, maybe I possess a skill that men don't have.
Not
You
at
know.
all.
Yeah. We still get that. I can dress up nicely, professionally. I'll still be confused for an administrative staff member or someone else. Not to say all jobs are important. Seriously, we put a lot in skills development, so we are not undermining any profession. However, if you are with your peers, you put in the same work to achieve a certain qualification. You want to be recognized for that, right? Yeah. So it's really a little bit disheartening to get that from the people that we were in classrooms with. When I joined, someone said, "Oh, there's a female who has a PhD in electrical engineering." Okay, I don't know what that meant, but you just gotta move on. So to make a case for this issue in terms of, are we really developing enough women in engineering or girls who are aspiring mining engineers? I go with recruit, retain, and promote or elevate. We have to start somewhere. It's kind of an issue of chicken and egg. Which one came first? For you to elevate a woman in a position, we should have educated them first, make sure that they graduate, right? They earn those degrees, and we make sure that they stay within that mining engineering. Not to graduate and leave the profession to do other things, only because being a woman in the society that they live in doesn't provide.
Hello. Hi.
Doesn't provide a platform for that engineer to thrive and participate in society. I'm going to look at 3 things or highlight 3 things. 1 being policies, 2 society, 3 will be lack of representation. So policies, not just the curriculum or the pedagogy, however, but take for example, we are referring to tertiary students, right? They're getting the same living allowance. Being a woman is expensive. You have hair, cosmetics, clothes, feminine health to worry about. So our nations or governments or policymakers who think a female student deserves the same amount of living allowance as the male student, they're saying we're ignoring the fact that you are a woman. So are we being punished to be women? She talked about gender-specific budgets. Women are expensive. If our society is accepting that a woman is different, then they should cater for those. Take for example, thank you, sorry. Because in the long run, engineering takes 5 years. If the student is not able to take care of that budget based on that living allowance, they can get discouraged. We already know the high numbers of female dropouts than male. Financial constraints could be one. You can choose to become a mother or to start a family while we are in tertiary, because we are adults, right? But the society or the policies, one, you are going to be the one who drops out or you take some time off. That might affect the progress, might affect your dreams in achieving your engineering degree, which has happened a lot. And sometimes the father of the child might be your fellow student, but they will continue to graduate, get their mining degree, apply for a job. Chances are that, the statistics, chances are that that's not going to be the person who marries you. You don't have a degree, he's going to be looking for others who have the degree, right? So these are just the facts about our society. As I said, it's like we're just being discarded for being a woman. The other thing about lack of representation. How can these girls imagine themselves being in boardrooms, being a senior mining engineer, being a CEO of Botswana? if they have never seen a woman who looks like them? It's impossible, right? Sometimes to imagine outside the environment that you grow up in. Leadership roles, mentorship, that's what they need to see. The more women in mining, in academia, that our girls who are studying see, they see the potential, they see the possibilities. These all male staff members can be a little bit intimidating for our female aspiring engineers. Can they be understanding if a female student fails to submit an assignment, fails to take a test because why? You have menstrual cramps, right? Or you just gave birth to a week ago. We can't really expect that to happen based on some skewed societal views that we already have or women are experiencing. So those are some of the factors that really lead or affect the numbers, increase in numbers in terms of women in engineering, women in mining. Just for the interest of time, I will say, let's make sure that our policymakers, we really strive to shape our policies so that they are favorable to retention of girls. Deliberately, we really have to make that a purpose. We have the Sustainable Development Goals as a binding contract. So any nation should be really focusing on that nation that I think it's SDG 4 and 5 for quality education and gender equality by 2030. So if we do not bind ourselves with that, we will not, we'll continue to contribute to this global challenge. Gender equality is a global challenge. In terms of certain issues that we as academics might face that really can hinder women from elevating. Take, for example, research grants applications. Because not many women are at professor level, to increase the success of maybe being awarded a grant, a research grant, there has to be someone who's a professor in there. And our counterparts naturally really don't think we are smart enough to be on that team. So that means more women are just going to be advancing to become associate profs, full profs. The more money you recruit for the institution, the more rewards you're going to get. I will end it right here and say, as you move along up the ladder of achieving your accolades, please do not leave a girl behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I think, be mindful of time, let me allow them to speak. Let's hold on to those questions as they continue to speak, and then we'll interact with them at the end. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Next is Priscilla.
Afternoon, everyone. Apologies for coming in a little bit late. I live in a female-run household. The power has been off since 6 a.m. So the gate motor ran out of power.
Ask your helper.
I had to undress, fight with the gate, finally open the gate and make my way up here. I think the most important thing that I missed from this session is hearing somebody read my Bible. Because I think as women we tend to be very modest. That is not the best description of myself. I think if I had asked somebody who knows me very well to write that diary for me, would have come out a little bit more interesting and more accomplished.
Yeah.
So I find that I mute myself and whatever I've achieved, mainly because of culture and the ways that we are socialized to use to describe ourselves as women. So this is where I then come in terms of talent development and management, specifically to women, but zoning in around culture, and I know culture is the buzzword now, and it's very important that we try to be as open-minded as we can when we speak about culture, because we don't wake up and land in the workplace and all of a sudden there's culture. And then we want to point fingers at the workplace culture and say it's not enabling women So I'm currently in financial services. This is my 10th year with the Big Bank. Before then, I was with Botswana for 5 years. I was with Group Projects. I was one of 3 women in the Group Projects management team. Obviously, I'm in HR. The other one was in finance, and the other one, and the other one was in contracts, drawing up contracts. And the guys were gentle because there's this thing of a rose among the thorns, and they would use that. They were the most pleasant bunch of guys I've ever worked with. But I would look at some of them, I'm like, I'm more manly than these guys. You know? But it's almost offensive to carry yourself like how you feel in terms of character and the way you express yourself. If you're around guys, it's almost offensive to come out looking manly or manlier than the guy across the room. So we asked ourselves, where is that coming from? So it's actually coming from home.
Yeah.
That whole thing of culture comes from home. And we carry it into society, we carry it into offices where we make policies. And therefore, I think the voices we hear at home shape how we see ourselves, how we write our bios, and eventually how we present ourselves. So it's very important that as we move into the workplace, we understand that as women, we also carry that bias. And we are quick, and it's much more comfortable to jump into a stereotype than go against the grain and be who you are. And in terms of workplace, from an HR perspective, I think we also enable this unfavorable culture towards women in terms of the language that we use in the organization. If you go down to your job description or whatever, under competencies or what is seen to be a perfect fit for this position, will most likely be described how Bala you think they're describing a dude here. So you need to, and when the first image of someone that pops into your head when you use the word leadership, it's a man, isn't it? Yes. And that we get that from home. We get that if you are married, you would understand that the lead in everything is the man. So I think we like comfort as women because it's also less controversial. If you try to go against the grain in the workplace, you will get labels. The system will spit you out. There will be women aiding the system to spit you out.
Oh, yeah.
Because you also make them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to run this session and point a finger outside of who has the most control. I think it's us. So in terms of workplace, I think we need to, get to a point where we say there is a problem, we are contributing to it. Most of us are in these enabling positions and departments, right? You are in finance, you are in HR, and when it's time for training and development, talent retention, all those nice, expensive things, guess who's the guy who goes to London School of Economics? It's a dude. Guess who goes to EDP from UCT? The bulk of them are dudes. And sometimes you look at them and you're like, how? Even some of us haven't been in all those programs and you're thinking, but I'm here, I'm doing this budget. When am I going to get into this thing? And you're like, no, you don't need it. And it gives you a false sense of confidence. You believe you don't need it. But that dude needs it, right? So I think it's very important to have bold conversations, look at the artifacts that make workplace culture environment. Start with your policies, start from your budgeting processes and ask questions and say, how much of this budget in terms of training and development has been used towards women? It's very important that when you do those kind of processes, those kind of activities in the workplace, you always dissect by gender. And I don't like dissecting by gender personally, because now we've got kids who are in the LGBTQI that we have to worry about. You have the disability people. You also have women who think like men. So there's this thing of cognitive diversity that you also need to be very aware of. So we just need to be fully alert. So it's very important that we use data in an organization to say, this is how we look. Because guys like data. Guys like evidence and less words. They want graphs and show a graph going there, going down. It will make sense to them. So to be able to influence, to get us to a position where they look at us a little bit differently, not just a rose among the thorns. Let's understand them, find better ways of communicating with them, to them, so that they can get the message and not hear the noise. I get about it. Yes. So you then put out the information and make a case. Slowly but surely, the wheels start moving. And I'll give you an example. I'm in financial services. I think financial services loves women. You can see the statistics. We have so many MDs. There's so many of us in those boardrooms. If you are not in a boardroom, a dude will come and ask for money from you. You'll say no. You exercise your power. You own that space, right? And before then, if you go back 10 years, it was men in those positions. If you looked at the exco from one bank to the other, maybe 70% were men. So you start understanding how to communicate with them, use numbers. They can't give you anything back to say that is not true, right? Because if you don't use evidence, if you don't use hardcore evidence, they can simply say it's perception. And you can't win against perception, right? So I find that the financial services has really progressed. We own the space, but it's very important that as we come up, we also bring others up. We share the success stories and how we got there. So in terms of mining, I think it starts from home. Was I told I should be a nurse, a psychologist, a doctor? I had a fight with my own father who wanted me to be a lawyer. I didn't want to be a lawyer, but we applied for law school, and then I secretly applied for something else. My admission came, and I went for that thing. It took me out of the country. 3 months later, he says, "Oh, UB has responded, come back." I'm like, how do I come back? He says, "No, come back, I'll go and talk to them so that you can do law." He was very passionate. And you can be anything, you can do anything. I don't remember my mother's voice when I was growing up around what I can be. But I remember every single thing that my father did. We even had a roster who's washing the dishes, who's doing the garden, who's washing the car. I do all those things. I think he knew I was going to be running a female-led household, so I know how to do all of those things. So I never had an issue with, can I be? But once I was in the workplace in mining, it was a shock because all of a sudden I couldn't be anything I wanted to be. There were roles, this is for guys, the language was different. So I do think it starts from home. Women take the lead in parenting. So let's watch the language that we use. Let's try to be as open-minded as we can when we are exposing our children, when we are having critical conversations with the kids. Right? The kind of toys that you buy. That brings up a child who's believing to be anything. And therefore, when opportunities are created, they will be able to jump into those opportunities. right now the opportunities are quotas. We have this quota for women, we have this quota for men. But I think because we are here, we're in the workplace, we should be working to making sure that it's no longer quotas, it's just opportunities that we can take. So it's brutal out there. One thing that we lack is a coaching and mentoring support group, so to speak. Because when you go up, it doesn't matter what industry is in, it becomes tougher for a woman. There's less of us there, so in terms of social capital that you have in the workplace, there's less of. You can't be drinking Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and being on Sundays or come actually go. That's how they bring each other up. Where are we on Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Are we actively knowing that we need to be having groups supporting each other and bringing each other up, sharing where we need to be improving, what has worked for me, and just encouraging each other and giving opportunities to each other. I think in summation, really, I think we are in control, but we can't see that we are in control. The power is within us, and I think we will get there. The trick is use numbers to communicate to these guys and let us get to where we need to. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, before we move to the next speaker and before we forget, I think they said something that is related. She talked about the numbers being low from entry level, even into the universities. And then she talked about the numbers being low, as we see in the workplace. And obviously there's a relationship. Those who are graduating are very few in numbers. Those who enter the workplace are also very few in numbers. But how do we influence the fact that they have been cultured in a certain way? They have been groomed in a certain way. And maybe from the home, that is why they are not enrolling for those courses. And so the issues emanate from way back. And we are trying to treat the surface, but it starts with where we are growing up. And it starts from the conversations. We are mothers here, we are sisters, we are aunties. The conversations that we have with our kids, even at home today, are the ones that will shape them to get into these professions. So let us be mindful of what we say to our kids. And when we talk about mentorship, I think she talked about girls' mentorship. She also mentions there's need for mentorship and coaching. And what I see in the workplace, I was in Germany, and I think most of the mentors were men. And what they teach you is to have a thick skin. Yeah. I like that because it helped me to continue being who I was and excelling in the environment that was very rough. But I was told most of the time, Segametsi, you can't be a crybaby. You need to have that thick skin. When it's tough, you need to remember that you can do it. But we have people who are able to tell us that from the women aspect as well. Or do we have those who are, and then you leave and you go. So sometimes we are torn between listening to the men, helping us grow into who we are today, but at the same time, starting from the root. I will hand over to Queen to take us through what she has while we sort out Barbara. Let me assist the team at the back while we continue.